great Bruce Pearl, most recently the head coach of the Auburn University men's basketball team, joins us momentarily for a wide-ranging conversation about faith and politics and culture in America as the last great beacon for Western civilization and therefore all mankind. You definitely do not want to miss this conversation momentarily with Bruce Pearl. For now, though, sticking to the news cycle and current events, it looks like tonight is finally the end of the shutdown. Speaker Mike Johnson is conveying cautious optimism that he has the votes to actually formally end this shutdown. The vote in the United States Senate on Monday evening, they got 60 votes. You had the 7 Democrats plus Angus King, the independent of Maine, who crossed over to join Republicans to end the longest shutdown in U.S. history. And today is day 43. Today, November 12th, is day 43 of the Schumer shutdown. And if it ends tonight, it will go down as the least memorable 43-day shutdown in the history of government shutdowns. Now, do they have the votes? Probably. We'll see. I kind of assume that Thomas Massie is going to vote no because that's just what he does these days. Thomas Massie, incidentally, has become a total curmudgeon and a massive pain in the rear end. A total useless idiot when it comes to the MAGA agenda. Donald Trump has already endorsed his primary opponent. Hopefully, Massie is out come fall 2026. We'll see how many other, if any other, Republican votes are lost. The margin is exceedingly small. If I had to guess, I think this thing's going to hold. I don't think anyone besides Massie will vote against it. You might get a couple of Democrats trickle in as well. If this really is the end, here is the very basic conclusion. The conclusion is that Republicans did not necessarily win this shutdown, but Democrats definitely lost. They unequivocally lost. As you knew they would, because I've been saying it every day on the show for over a month now, is that Democrats had no game plan. They had a fracturing coalition. They had a fracturing caucus. They had a fracturing block of outside interest groups. They weren't unified. They had no message. They had no compelling reason whatsoever freaking ever to shut the government down for this long. And now the civil war on the left has only exacerbated. They're calling Chuck Schumer a horrific leader. Chuck Schumer currently polling as the least popular Democratic Senate leader in the entire history of the Senate Democratic Caucus, which is really something. I mean, talk about spying your nose to save the face. I mean, Chuck Schumer trying to shut down the government, try to appease the leftward flank, all in this self-serving, cynical attempt to try to ward off and forestall a 2028 primary challenge to his senatorial seat from AOC. And in return, he just gets the left totally angry at him and angrier like never before. So, what a mess on the Democratic side of the aisle. Now, do the Republicans really gain much? I mean, no, not really, to be honest with you. I mean, they're going to hire back a bunch of these furloughed workers. Many of us would have much preferred that these deep state bureaucrats actually went the way of just, sayonara, go find some job in the private sector, ideally not on the taxpayer fisc. So they agreed to hire back all of these workers with full back pay. And the CR, the continuing resolution, CR just being a budget speak for the Beltway crowd, the CR only goes through January. So we easily could be having this exact same conversation, this exact same brinksmanship, this same routine in just about 2.5 months. I know you're just as excited as I am to have that exact same conversation in 2.5 months' time. Having said that, though, it's not this is a great conservative victory. I'm not really sure it's much of a conservative victory at all. But again, one, it's definitely a loss for the left. They are fracturing like never before. They have lost on the ostensible reason that they shut down the government in the first place. They have not gotten a guaranteed renewal of their beloved Obamacare subsidies, especially for blue state voters and denizens. And perhaps most importantly, just thinking not as a partisan here, but just as an American. Looking at the calendar, looking at the fact that the Thanksgiving holiday is rapidly approaching. Looking at the fact that Christmas is not that far after that. Is this really a time where you want air traffic control to be hemorrhaging employees? Is this really a time where you want hundreds or thousands of flights being canceled? The obvious answer is no. It's not a time for flight cancellations. It's not a time for depressing the morale of the United States Armed Forces service members who are at risk or were at risk of losing a paycheck any day now if the shutdown had continued for just a few more days. It's not good. It's not good at all. And for that reason alone, frankly, I am happy that this shutdown is over. It's not a massive victory. It's not something that I'm particularly excited or enthusiastic about. You can probably hear it in my voice and see it on my face. But it is better, all things considered, that this shutdown is over. Again, assuming that Mike Johnson has the votes, we should be able to find that out tonight. He sounds cautiously optimistic, and I certainly think that he has every reason to be cautiously optimistic. Those who know me well know that well before I was a political junkie, well before I was a lawyer, I was a really hardcore sports fan. I still am to this day. And college basketball, maybe more than anything else, has been one of my passions since I was in 3rd or 4th grade. So it is a unique point of personal pleasure to bring on to the Josh Hammer Show today someone who I've only recently started to get to know in a personal capacity, someone for whom I've been aware for a very long time because of his prolific success on the hard court, and that is Coach Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl is most recently the head coach of the Auburn University men's basketball team, where he just took them to the Final Four just this past April in San Antonio. He's also the chairman of the board of the U.S. Israel Education Association, and currently he is an on-air analyst for Turner Sports, calling and analyzing basketball games. So, Coach Pearl, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining the Josh Hammer Show today.
Well, Josh, the fact that our worlds align in basketball and politics, love of country, love of our Jewish faith and our ancestral homeland, it's wonderful to be with you as well.
Well, you are a proud American, you are a proud Jew, a proud Zionist. We're going to get into all of those things and more over the course of our conversation. But Coach Pearl, I thought that I would just open the conversation. Your resignation caught many of us, I think, by surprise. I for one, was a little caught off guard by it. It happened in late September. For those who don't know your career trajectory super well, why did you decide to resign from coaching at this time? You just took Auburn to the Final Four. You've had tremendous success in recent years there in Auburn, Alabama. Why did you choose at this moment to at least take a break from coaching to focus on what you're currently focused on?
Well, Josh, I've been head coach for 30 years. I've been in college basketball for almost 50 years. That's a long time, to be doing anything. And I'm 65. I'm still in good health. There was a part of me that kind of wanted to get out on top, part of me that wanted to get out before it sort of got to me, in a sense that in coaching, we do age in doggy years, and the stress and the anxiety and the pressure of living up to the incredible lofty expectations that we've established. A little bit of some of the changes in the game right now with the combination of the NIL and the transfer portal working together, the game has become way more transactional from a recruiting standpoint than it has ministerial from a player development, graduating kids, being involved in their lives a lot more than just 1 year. And if I wanted to do that, I would have coached in the NBA or looked at a coach in the NBA a long time ago. So you pull all those things together. And then 2 more factors that were in play. One, my son was my associate head coach, and I had staff, maybe 8 or 9 guys that have been with me for 8 years or more. And so at some point, if I were to retire or resign or potentially get fired, it affects a lot of lives. And to leave when I did, it gave my athletic director, John Cohen, the opportunity to reward the guys that had been with me for a long time, not do a national search and turn the job over to a staff that's won 5 championships in the last 8 years. And the last reason, I wasn't waking up every morning thinking about beating Tennessee or beating Kentucky or beating Alabama. I was waking up every morning thinking about our country, thinking about the direction it was going, thinking about politics, thinking about policy, and thinking about all the anti-Semitism that was all around us, and being grateful for the fact that 3 Jewish basketball coaches were in last year's Final Four.
Yeah, and one of those coaches, John Shire, was actually just 1 year ahead of me back at Duke. I literally remember bumping into him at frat parties back in the day, which is just just kind of one of those small world type things. So we're going to get into all that momentarily here, but just one more question, because Coach Pearl, again, as someone who follows basketball as closely as I do, you were renowned, I would say. Not just known, I would say that you were renowned as being one of the players' favorite coaches. This is just a well-known thing, I think, in the college basketball fan base, that the players loved you. The players loved being coached by you. They love being mentored by you. I think fellow coaches, frankly, just love being around you. You've become known, among other things, as just a very jovial, larger than life type personality. And I thought that you could just briefly comment, having been in the game for decades and decades. I just mentioned I'm a Duke guy. And I remember my freshman year at Duke, I remember going to Cameron Indoor Stadium and watching Coach K deliver a, I don't know, half-hour speech to the freshman class, just about all his decades and how he views basketball as kind of a way of grooming young men to be successful adults. His whole idea of basketball as a metaphor for life. I'm curious if you could just elaborate on that based on your own experience and how you think that has really kind of readied you for what you're now focused on in the decades to come.
Well, Josh, the great coach Pat Dye, former football coach here at Auburn, said, you can coach him as hard as you love him. And it's really true. And so when you think about who on earth can maybe say things to you that are a little difficult to hear about yourself, sometimes being critical or sometimes praising you in such a way, or it's the people that love you, like your parents or a grandfather or somebody, a best friend that can say things to you that nobody else could say. Because they love you, and they care about you, and it doesn't make them right, but it puts them in that sort of position where you're almost accepting of what they've got to say. And that's what coaches can do. That's the position that we try to put ourselves in if we truly care about the kids. And so that's what made me, I think, allowed as a teacher or even as a rabbi or as a minister to be able to teach and preach into these young men, because I wanted to let them play basketball if they didn't go to class. We've graduated 51 student athletes in the last 11 years, and somebody get out there and do some research right now. I don't know that you'll find a Power 5 program that's done that, can say that. Certainly can also say that and have had the success that we've had, because a lot of that discipline and a lot of that love and a lot of that holding guys accountable and had a lot to do with winning championships and had a lot to do with teams making sacrifices and teammates not being jealous of other men's success or doing the things that great teams and great societies need to be able to do to be able to be successful. My job was to put my players in positions to be successful, to actually not lie to them, to not promise them it was going to be easy, but believe in them and see something in them they didn't see in themselves, and then help them realize those goals. And you put that all together, and that made for a great, great relationship.
Bruce Pearl is most recently the former head coach of the Auburn University men's basketball team. He's also the chairman of the board of the U.S. Israel Education Association. You can also hear him on Turner Sports analyzing college basketball these days. So what you've said here thus far, Coach, is really extraordinary. Because I think a lot of folks who grow up sports junkies, basketball junkies, they would frankly kill to be in your position, right? To be taking Power 5, major conference teams to the Final Four. But you're basically saying that wasn't what excited you anymore, that you woke up in the morning just more motivated about what's happening to the country, about what's happening to the rise in anti-Semitism, anti-Israel hatred there. So just elaborate on that. What exactly first got you? Because I assume that you were not always a 24/7 news junkie glued to cable news. I presume that you were, once upon a time, truly focused on the game and so forth there. So what really kind of clued you in as to how things have gotten, and what specifically, I think, really galvanized you to get to the point where you could put down the whistle on the basketball and try to get more active in the political and, in some ways, just the civic and religious space?
Well, Josh, my grandfather named me Mordechai, and you know the story of Purim, and Mordechai, of course.
Our daughter's named Esther, so that's very appropriate, actually.
There you go. And together, between Mordechai speaking to Esther and teaching his niece, look, if you don't step up and say something to the king who's in love with you, who you have some influence over, he's going to kill the Jews of Persia. And at some point, you are also going to die. So you have a choice. You either stand up and say something, because silence is complicity, and save your people from what would have been the first Holocaust that we would have all known, or not, and sit on the sideline. And it took Mordechai's voice it took Esther's ears to be able to do that. And I think that my papa made sure that I understood, number one, this country saved your family's life, son. Like 1929, my grandfather immigrated from Turnipole. He was 11 years old. He brought his three younger siblings, my Auntie Shirley, my Auntie Claire, and my Uncle Harold was an infant back then. Many in his family did not make the trip because they couldn't afford it. So what do? They put the kids on a boat. We all have stories like that. Papa became a citizen when he was 32 years old, and he told me it was the greatest day of his life. And he made sure I understood that if it wasn't for this country saving our family, none of this would have been possible for us. And so that was one thing. The second thing was he was an Orthodox Jew that was a plumber. I never saw him in a suit till the day he died and my bar mitzvah. He always had his work clothes on. And but he would wrap tefillin. They kept kosher. Yiddish was the language that was spoken mostly in our house. And while he was grateful for the opportunities this country presented, he was also very afraid. He had seen society turn on the Jews, and so he had seen it in Russia. He saw it throughout World War II. And he experienced it in Boston with tremendous anti-Semitism and the tremendous profiling of a community community where the blacks lived in Roxbury, the Jews lived in Mattapan and Dorchester, the Italians were in the North End, the Irish were in South Boston. People that from Boston know what I'm talking about. And it was great culture and great ethnicity, but there was also great division and it was great tension. So my papa lived through that. He made sure that I understood that. And then, I don't know, Josh, I think when Tommy Tuberville decided he was going to run for governor and leave a Senate seat for about 2 months, I was being recruited, and I really thought a lot about maybe being a United States Senator and seeing if I could do the things that I wanted to do to try to help our country, the direction it was going, so on and so forth. Two things happened. One, the Republican that comes from the state of Alabama is going to be a MAGA conservative Republican. You don't need Bruce Pearl's vote for that to happen. The second thing is that conservative Republican is also going to be a strong supporter of Israel. That goes without saying. So I realized, there's a lot of things I can do for our country in education and to help build a strong U.S. Israel relationship, which I think is great for our country as well as Israel and peace throughout the world by not running for Senate. We can come on the show some other time to tell you more in detail about why I chose to not run for Senate.
Sure, but you're in the fight. You're definitely in the fight, whether or not you're running for the United States Senate seat or not. And one of the ways that you've been in the fight for decades now, as far as I can tell, is you've been taking young players over to Israel for a very long time, whether it's as the coach of the American team for basketball and the Maccabi games, whether it's taking Auburn players over to Israel there. Tell us about those experiences, because all the polling does show that it is the younger Americans, younger millennials, Gen Z, really young men, I would say, above all, but it's really this demographic that I think a lot of folks who are robust supporters of the U.S. Israel relationship, as you and I are, it's this demographic that I think a lot of folks are now starting to get increasingly worried about. But you have a lot of personal experience here, and my anecdotal impression from having seen some of the clips, the images of you over in Israel with your players, is that it seems to me to have been very positive experiences there. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and whether that gives you more signs for optimism and hope based on what we currently confront?
Well, I know the opposition hates to hear this, but go visit Israel and see for yourself. And obviously, I've been many, many times. And for Christians who go to Israel, man, the Holy Spirit is all around them. They get to walk where Jesus walked. They get to see right now, thank God, because of Israel's security, all the holy sites. They get to go to the Galilee and see places like Capernaum or walk up on the Temple Mount where Jesus delivered, so many important things to his disciples. They get to go there. What a blessing. What an amazingly wonderful opportunity for them to get closer and have a greater understanding of their own faith. And, For me, the battle that I'm constantly fighting right now is for my Christian brothers and sisters to continue to embrace the Jewish roots of their Christian faith. I didn't go to Hebrew school and learn what a great rabbi Jesus was. I didn't know that he was Jewish his entire life. I ask my Christian friends all the time, so who are you having over for Passover? And I'll say, like, Coach, we're not Jewish. We're not having Passover. And I'm like, well, why not? You're always telling me you want to be more like Jesus. He celebrated Passover every year. He always had people over for Passover. Of course, it was the Last Supper. And then Josh, as a coach, the whole story behind that is genuinely just trying to bring people together. I love teaching the Abrahamic covenant. I like going back that far and going, whether we like it or not, there was Isaac and there was Ishmael. And our father Abraham is our father. That connects us. That or it could divide us. Which would you prefer? Again, for me as a coach, I would rather have there be some form of connection because I know as a coach that when we as a team can work together, we can have far more success than if we individuals have success, but the team fails. When the country fails, when society fails, this is not good for individuals. And so creating great societies and great teams, respecting one another, respecting our differences, having a big tent and finding a way to come together, tolerating each other's differences, respect, and being able to live, assimilate, but pray as we choose and not be threatened for it. And that's sort of been kind of my life's work.
Well, it's been deeply important in life's work, both on and off the basketball court, no doubt about that. Coach Bruce Pearl is most recently the head coach of the Auburn University men's basketball team, where he has led Auburn to multiple Final Fours. Currently, he is an on-air analyst for Turner Sports, and he's also chair on the board of the U.S. Israel Education Association. Back to what you were just saying, Coach. I've been to Israel a number of times as well, and I remember I read a law school delegation my final year of law school that was primarily Christian, some Jews, but mostly Christians. We went to a lot of Christian holy sites. We went to the Church of the Nativity in Nazareth. We went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. My first time actually being there, and I actually write this in my book, Israel and Civilization. I say that this is one of my favorite trips actually ever, because I've been plenty of times with fellow Jews, seeing their faces light up at the Kotel, the Western Wall. But that was my first time seeing Christians' faces just light up with joy and excitement at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and places like that. And I think about just the current debate that is now happening on parts of the American right. The media has given a lot of coverage to some of these recent Turning Point USA events, one at your school, Auburn, where there were some hostile anti-Israel questions asked. There was this whole controversy with Tucker Carlson having on the neo-Nazi punk Nick Fuentes, and Tucker saying that he hates no one more than Christian Zionists. But, for Christians here in the United States who think of themselves as a Zionist or not, and to be clear, all Zionism means that you support the Jewish state's right to exist. That's literally all it means. But for Christians here that I have personally been with over there, to see the joy on their face, I don't think they would have any interest in listening to what the Tucker Carlsons of the world have to say, honestly, because you see it, you live it, you experience it. So is that really one of our best tools here, is trying to kind of bring people over there? What else can we do, frankly, when it comes to the younger generation of Christians? Because so many of my best friends in the world are evangelical Christians, traditional Catholics. Many of them are the most salty people you will ever meet. I love them as my brothers just as much as my Jewish friends there. But this really is the current fight right now, is to make sure that the younger generation of Americans, and this is still a prominently Christian country, really does support the Jewish people and the Jewish state as much as my generation, your generation. So talk to us more about what we can and should be doing, including bringing folks over there. What else can we be doing? What else are you going to start doing now that you have more free time on your hands?
Part of it is teaching and preaching and part of it is living the best life you possibly can. And we're not going to lose this fight. They can try all they want to replace Jerusalem with the church, starting in Matthew. They can try, but there's just that they're not going to win that battle. You see, 12 Jewish men, they died horrific deaths bringing Christianity to the world. You don't have to say thank you, but at the same time, that's just not going away. You can't rewrite history. It isn't going away. That, whether Messiah is coming back or whether the Messiah is coming, he's coming to Jerusalem. That's what the book says. And you know what? I'm going to be on that wall as a Jewish man with my Christian brothers, whether it's when he comes back or when he's coming for the first time as a Messiah. It doesn't matter. We are in this together. The Bible says it over and over again. The truth says it over and over. Josh, I'm not worried about it. We're not going to lose this battle. And I think it's great right now that the Republican Party is having this discussion right now. Because you know what? The Democrats didn't have the discussion. They just decided that with AOC or Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar or whatever left wing of their party wanted to become anti-Semitic and support Hamas over Israel. Like if let's just say Israel lost the war. God forbid they lost the war. And Iran won the war, because it's all about Iran. It's all about them and Hezbollah and Hamas. It's what it's all about. And their Jews are all dead. First of all, it'd be World War III, okay, because the Jews aren't going quietly by the night. That's not going to happen. Okay, they're going to take others with them. But forget about that. Let's just say Israel's not in charge anymore. Well, there are no more visits to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. There are no more visits to the pools of Siloam, walking up through the city of David, the steps to the southern steps and to the western. They're not there, because guess what? Between 1948 and 1967, when Jordan was in charge, Christians could not go there. I just don't see Christians. I don't see the world absolutely allowing that to happen. Look what's happened to Bethlehem. Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, okay? It used to be, prior to the Oslo Accords, about 80 to 85% Christian. And why wouldn't it be? It's where Jesus was born. It's where Joseph and Mary lived and their families were. After the Oslo Accords and the brilliance of carving up Judea and Samaria and giving the Palestinians their own states in these little fiefdoms, okay? It's about 85 to 90% Palestinian and Muslim. About 5 or 10% Christians that are there now. And I've been there. I've been there with Christians. They've been run out of town. That's not okay with me. And it shouldn't be okay with Christians in this country. And for the ones that know the truth, it just flat out isn't okay. And so, the reason why I'm not worried, Josh, is because the truth is the truth. That's all there is to it. Why do I want to bring young people to Israel? To break down all those stereotypes. My players get off the plane. You take them to the beaches of Tel Aviv. They see all the people. Half of them are people of color looking just like them, as dark as they are. And they see the freedoms that exist in the culture. Seeing is flat out believing. And I just can't believe the people in this country that somehow think the world would be better off if Israel wasn't a free, democratic society that was and is our aircraft carrier out there in the Middle East. If Iran was controlling that, okay, what would happen to all of Israel's ability in cybersecurity or artificial intelligence or science or military or all the things that Israel has? If Iran had them, that goes to China. That goes to Russia. That goes to our enemies. A strong peace in the Middle East, a strong Israel in the Middle East gives the Middle East the best chance for peace. The reason why I am so grateful for President Trump, because I don't think there's a man in the history of the world that could have ever brought all the people to the table that he could to get the fighting to stop and to get the hostages home. He has done an amazing job. The greatest friend the Jews have ever had for the state of Israel. His supporting Israel and allowing Israel to be strong, though, was what created the peace. That's the bottom line. And the reason why the Abraham Accords started, and the reason why it's got a chance to continue to advance, is because if you're a country in that part of the world, who would you want to ally with? You want to ally with Iran and those crazies? I'll tell you what, I'd rather be friends with the state of Israel, a democratic society where there are these freedoms, and they're the baddest boy on the block. And we've had thousands of Israelis die fighting our fight and fighting our enemy overseas. I can't believe there are elements of the Republican Party that exist right now that want to just at every chance they get blame Israel for this and blame Israel for that. Israel has been the best investment our country has ever made in a foreign country. And if we wouldn't make that Israel, we would have lost the Middle East. If we didn't go over there and help England and France, they'd be serving Wiener Schnitzel right now in Paris. Okay? And so that was a good thing then, and this is a good thing now.
It's funny, Coach. I wholeheartedly agree with you that President Trump is the most pro-Israel president since the modern state was reconstituted back in 1948. I actually would go even further. I think that he's arguably the most pro-Jewish president more generally. You could argue in American history, at least since Abraham Lincoln or George Washington, one of these titans of history. I actually wrote that in an op-ed for the New York Post back in October 2020, just before that election. I remember Mark Levin tweeted it out, and then Donald Trump actually hit the retweet button. It was probably my first Trump retweet ever. Apparently he liked that praise. And by the way, this first Trump term in this first year, he has only been even more robust in defending Jewish student civil rights on university campuses. I mean, the DOJ and the Civil Rights Division under Harmeet Dillon, they've just been incredible, absolutely incredible. But you are right that there, to your point as well, that there are some younger folks who are really doubting this relationship. And when I look at the folks like Tucker, I hate to pick on Tucker, but he really is the head of the snake right now. What I see, Coach, is I see an information operation that's designed not merely to separate the United States from Israel, but if I'm being very candid and blunt, I see an information operation that is designed to bamboozle and to convince and gaslight Christians into abandoning the Jewish people. When I see Tucker say things like how the New Testament is the only source of Western civilization and morality. Well, hello, that would have been news to the founding fathers. I mean, the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia has Leviticus inscribed on it. Benjamin Franklin wanted Moses leading the Israelites across the Red Sea to be the national seal. So it's just completely ahistorical, but it's devious, and it's intended to really, I think, bamboozle a lot of Christians to essentially abandon the Jews. But I say all that because I want to get your response to my next question, which is, you live in Alabama. I mean, you live in the buckle of the Bible Belt. I mean, based on church attendance, every statistic out there, Alabama has one of, if not the highest church attendance rates, one of the highest percentage of evangelical Protestants of any state there. You're probably the state's single most visible Jew. I mean, I can't think of who else it would be, honestly. It has
it's either me or Jesus. It's either me or Jesus.
Yeah, right. Okay, fair enough. But of those currently living, it's you by definition, right? So, I mean, tell us about that. I mean, you've met a lot of Alabamians over the years, religious Christians. I have to imagine these have been overwhelmingly positive interactions, very philo-Semitic, pro-Jewish people. Tell us about those interactions.
Let me tell you something, Josh. Thank you for that. The Deep South is so incredibly misunderstood. It really, truly is. I have never felt more welcome in my faith here. Look, I grew up in Boston where there was tremendous challenges to be a Jewish man. And, I love my Patriots, I love my Red Sox, and I love some of the Boston sports teams, and I love growing up there. I love the patriotism of Boston. But the evangelical community has been just incredibly wonderful because they embrace the Jewish roots of their Christian faith. And that's just so misunderstood. We're getting kids from all over the country start to flood the SEC schools right now because it's places where there's great education, where there's great student life, where there aren't crazy kids on campus, protesting just this country. Let me tell you something, Josh. The great patriots of our country are not anti-Semitic. They're not. Okay, they love this country, and they respect the contributions of the Jewish people to this country. By and large, but here's what we're up against, and we're beginning to see it, starting to see it a little bit in the South, and I even saw it with some of the questioning from Turning Point events at Ole Miss and even at Auburn. There are two things that are extremely powerful. We talked about it: God and country. Like God and country. That's the two most powerful things for me and probably for you, God and country. But if you're going to take God and have it be just simply Christ only, which I understand for Christians, I do. That's the way they think you're getting to heaven, and I get that. That's fine. But then when you combine it with country, all right, they're teaching patriots, okay, that white, male, Christian only, America only, is the only way to go. Not America first, President Trump talked about this the other night. I thought it was brilliant. He said, look, I want America first, okay? But the problem is the world's a dumpster fire, and this world has lacked American leadership. And so in order for President Trump to be America first, he's got to be able to solve some problems around the world. And these problems around the world were created because of President Obama and President Biden, who were not leading the world, or certainly leading it in a direction that President Trump is obviously trying to lead it in right now. So what I say to my Christian brothers and sisters, listen, don't be fooled. You can be a patriot. You can be a patriot, and you can believe in Christ only without being a racist, without being anti-Semitic. All right, and that group on the right is trying to teach them a new theology and tapping into those two things. And the reason why it's getting some momentum with young people is this: it's a have and have not situation. It's intersectionalism. Right now, young people ages 22 to 30 are having the hardest times buying homes and starting families, and economically, it is not affordable right now. There's an issue. We got to get those interest rates down. We got to get the cost of housing down. And guess what? They're leaving these universities with debt, and they're not able to live the American dream. And so therefore, they are susceptible to be able to be, well, it's the fault of all those that have. And look at all that this group has or that group has. And that's when the Jews get lumped into that have group. We can't possibly afford to send anything over for Ukraine to defend itself. We can't possibly make any kind of investment in Israel, because that money needs to be here at home. And you know what? People that are struggling, I don't blame them. I get it. Well, they're being fooled into what bad investments are. And it's dangerous. I don't equate them to the foundations of fascism or Nazi Germany. I don't equate that, because I think that's a comparison that then leads to the Holocaust. I'm not going to go there. I just equate them more to the origins of the Klan. The Klan were white only, men only, Christian only, no blacks, no ethnics, no other religions. You tell me how much different some of that America only, white only that's existing in a very small part of the Republican Party that we're going to say no to. You're not welcome. This tent is not big enough for you.
Well, a hearty amen to that. And I broadly agree with your point that most of these folks who are young, who are economically disadvantaged, they don't have opportunities. I agree that you can't just speciously analogize them to the old brown shirts in Munich back in the 1930s. But before it's worth, I mean, Nick Fuentes, who I mentioned, literally does self-identify as Team Hitler. He has said that Hitler is really effing cool. But these folks are not preaching an actually serious theology. I mean, no one takes Nick Fuentes seriously when it comes to religion. I doubt the guy's frankly been to church in 10, 20 years, whatever. So for the folks who actually, I think, get in touch, the Christians who get in touch with their actual roots there, this whole puzzle starts to unravel, I think, a bit more easily than I think a lot of people more realize, which is very much how it was done back for the moral majority in 1970s, 1980s, groups like that. Well, Coach, you've been very generous with your time. I do have one more question before I let you go to kind of take us back full circle to where we began this conversation. I would be remiss again as a diehard college hoops fan. You're currently analyzing on-air games for us. Give us a prediction. Give us a prediction here. I'm not going to necessarily say name the national champion. I think that would be a little ahead of my skis there. But give us at least some of the top teams that you're most looking out for here when it comes to the potential to make a Final Four run in this 2025-2026 college hoop season.
Well, first of all, Josh, the quality of the college basketball game on the floor has never been better. Like, never been better. NIL has allowed for some of our better players to go in college and actually stay in college and not have to jump for the money of the NBA. As a result, I think the NBA is better because you don't have all these young kids that don't know how to play yet. They're out there getting minutes. The NBA has become a game of veterans, and both games are absolutely better. I think the two best conferences right now are the Big 12 and the SEC, and the Big 10 has got some teams this year that actually could maybe make a run for the Final Four of the national championship. Been a long time since the Big Ten has ever won. The ACC is improved over it was a year ago. The SEC had the most dominant year in the history of college basketball, with 14 out of 16 teams making the NCAA tournament. Of course, 2 teams went to the Final Four, and Florida won the national championship. But I just think it's going to be it's flat out what to watch for. And right now in November, I personally think this is November and March are my 2 favorite times in college basketball, because right now we're getting introduced to all these new teams and these new players, and you've got a dozen matchups this week alone of teams that are ranked in a top 10, a top 25, but it's also all from these different conferences. And so right now, to the victor go the spoils. If there could be a conference that can start to get an edge like the SEC did last year and beginning to sort of dominate a little bit, that conference is going to get more teams. I don't know that anybody is going to do what the SEC did last year. My Final Four teams, I've had Houston, I got Florida, I got Duke, I've got Arizona, and my Final Four right now, I think teams like UConn, and maybe one of the Big Ten schools. I haven't seen enough of Michigan to know, but I think there could be a team coming out of the Big Ten. Could be Michigan, Illinois, Purdue. It's loaded, and so buckle up and enjoy the show.
Well, I'm already enjoying it, and I will be enjoying it for months and months on end. So one final time, folks, Coach Bruce Pearl, most recently the head coach of the Auburn University Tigers men's basketball team, where he has taken them to multiple Final Fours. He is also the chairman of the board of the U.S. Israel Education Association, and he is an on-air analyst right now for Turner Sports in the realm of college hoops. Most importantly, as you've heard in this conversation, he is a great American, a great Jew, and a great Zionist. So, Coach Pearl, I'm so delighted that our paths have crossed. I hope we can break bread in person sometime soon. But for now, we really thank you for joining the Josh Hammer Show. God bless you, and thank you so much.
God bless you, Josh. Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Josh Hammer Show.